The views and opinions expressed on the Craig L. Hayes Show do not necessarily reflect those of Westgate Resort ownership or management. And now, on with the show.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.
All right, we are back with Rick Keller for episode number 2, and we're talking about show business. And, you know, we've talked for 25 minutes, and we've gotten to where he's about 18 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it was a big experience at Caesars.
Yeah, it's a great experience. What a room to get to work in for some of your first calls and
Right.
spots and stuff. Man.
Yeah. And like I said, well, back to the story, I was on Center Light for Ann Margaret. And in those days, you absolutely didn't screw up. If you cut an act, cut their head or their face, you know, they were looking to get somebody else. And there was big competition between spot operators. You know, who was the best and, you know, this kind of stuff. So you didn't mess up. It was serious. And, but the fun thing about that one was, so that show was in for 2 weeks. And we get to where we're taking it out, and I don't know what they're putting in afterwards. But they take me backstage and said, okay, Rick, you're going to go back here. You're going to stand right here next to where the hole is because you're going to be the guy to get the water line out. And it won't be as fun this time because there'll be water in there. It's like, okay. But they set me up for this. They stand me there, and just, 10, 15 feet away is the dressing room door. So they said, whatever you do, don't leave this spot. Just stay right here till it's time to go crawl under there and drag that line out. We'll pull it very easily because you crawled in, you had to crawl backwards out. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Which was kind of scary because they had a big basement there. And so you never knew, because it's dark. Where's that basement hole exactly?
Yeah.
But I'm standing there, and all of a sudden, the dressing room door opens, and I turn around, it's Ann Margaret, and she makes a beeline right for me and grabs me by my right arm. And she is just a beautiful woman.
Oh, yeah.
And so later on, I figured out, man, that was a setup.
Yep.
And doggone, she stood there and talked to me for 10 minutes, holding my arm, and everybody was looking and, having a fun time with it. Mm-hmm. And we talked for 10, 12 minutes. What are you doing? What this and that and this and that. So it was exciting. And later on, she brought her husband out and introduced him. But everybody got a kick out of it.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of the trophy of, hey, you did a good job. And, I had to crawl in there and get that water line, got all wet. But then they sent me home. Okay, you can go. You're going to get 4 hours because we're going to be here 4 hours, but you're all wet. So go on, go home.
Nice.
So that was good. But the cool thing that happened, I guess it was my father that found out that to get your union card, all you had to do was pay the $500. And you hear people today complaining that they have to put the $500 out, or maybe it's $600 now, I don't know. But it was $500 back then in '78.
And that was some real money.
Yeah, that was more than a week's work.
Yeah.
So, but I had the money, and you just had to take a little test. So I got my union card. And so I'm at Caesars, and if things slowed up a bit, like, okay, we're dropping the 3 lights on the next show, but you can stay, the sound guys need help. So you can stay this, or you'll go on the carpenter crew for the show change. So you still get 6 hours, and next week's show only has 3 lights. Could have been, a comedian or something. It's like, okay. So the shows were big, and show changes were big, and it'd take 30 guys sometimes. Mm-hmm. And you got called in for 2-hour calls. So in the middle of the night, because that's all the guarantee was, 2 hours. But we're working and working, and this is going to go till 6, 7, 8 a.m. So the head carpenter comes in. He says, okay, I want all the B-listers over here, and I want all the union guys over on this side. And so it's like, okay. So I walk over with the union guys, but I'm a B-lister. And they said, wait a second, Rick, you're a B-lister. You're going to go. All the union guys are staying. Even if they were from the hall, you know, they would say, I go, well, you said all the union members over here. He goes, are you a union member? I go, yeah. He said, let me see your card. And I pulled out my card and he goes, damn, you're staying. But that's how they operated,
Yeah.
you know, so didn't matter what crew you were on, B-listers went home.
Yeah. Well, that was the pride of having membership and being part of it, you know. 'Cause I used to do that here too. 'Cause I would ask people on these big shows and stuff, you know, okay, pull your cards. If you got a card, you're staying. You know, and people pull their cards out, and I said, if you don't, then you need to go get your card. You know, that'd be helpful. You'll get more work if you get your card.
Yeah, that still goes on here and there.
Yeah, not as
The-
strong as
the
it
union
was.
doesn't like it when you do that.
Yeah, because you start running in, you start going into those things of, you know, right to work state and stuff like that, and that can come back and bite you in the hall on that stuff too. You know, but you know, it's okay. Well, let's not use the card method. Let's not use you're a member thing. Let's do it this way. I'll just select whoever I want.
Yeah, and that's what it, yeah.
Yeah, and so I after a while I got away from that too, because I found that some of the people that were coming in that were just, you know, newer in the hall, they would outwork everybody, and that's the ones I wanted.
Yeah,
And some of the members would complain. I go, well, get back to working hard.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what you do.
The card doesn't mean you get, you know, carte blanche to go and be lazy. It doesn't say anything about being lazy. Come on.
Well, that's the big trick. If you just kept working, then they couldn't mess with you,
Yeah.
really.
Show up with a good attitude,
Yep,
work hard, and do what you're told, and then report back when you're done and say what's next. And I guarantee you, if you did that, you were on every crew and you were working all the time.
yep,
Easy.
exactly.
That was easy.
So I did that deal at Caesars. It was fun, and all the regular guys came back, and they had a good crew. And then I went into the Thunderbird. They had troopers in there, and it was a Red Fox show, and actually it was a Silverbird at that time. And it was a cool little showroom. My dad had worked it at one time, so I'd been in there a lot of times. He went over there at the time. Ted DeLacca was the headlight guy, and ran a light in there for a while. And so I did that for a week or two, but I didn't really get along with the headlight guy. He was on drugs pretty bad, and I didn't like none of that. But for the first week, I think I made like $1,500 because we were there the whole time.
And this was in like 79 or 8.
Yeah, 78, 79.
Righteous money, man.
Yeah, well,
Big dollars.
we'd go home for 4 hours or 5 hours, turn around, and come back.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty big little production show they were doing. But the head electric guy, his name was Chris Blodgett. But I don't think he had a total idea of what needed to be done for power and all these sets and all this stuff. I was pretty young, so I didn't really know, but I just knew that we spent hours and hours trying to do stuff and then would tear it apart and redo it. And some of the scenery stuff was just terrible. You know, you get something that has 300 6x6 candelabra bulbs, and
Yeah.
half of them don't work. So you got to go through there, and that's a whole process. But made a lot of money. But then I just didn't get along with the guy. And so I left there and just kind of in limbo. And at the Sahara was Ron Michelle was the headlight guy. J. Rich Sr. was spot one, or just spot. And Butch Sconey was the other spotlight guy. And then Forrest Michelle, Devon's father, was the relief guy. So, yeah, he was a good guy.
Yeah.
That guy never missed. I mean, if there was somebody stand up in the audience and they said, there's so-and-so in the audience, bang, he was hit him dead on. Never seen that guy miss a shot with a spotlight. But he decided his wife was working the show Vegas, and had just re-signed, so he wanted to go do that. so him and his wife could work together. So they gave me the relief job.
Where was that playing at?
Vegas was that TV show with Dan Tana.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, the actual TV show on that.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
So it got signed
Yeah,
for
Dan
a
Tana. Okay.
couple more seasons or something. So he went and did that.
I was going through my head in the showroom, a show called Vegas. I'm like, I don't remember that. You know, I was around, and I was like, I don't remember a show called Vegas.
Yeah. So I ended up at the Sahara as a relief guy, which was great. I knew the lights, knew the room. And Ron was a great boss because I just would come up with the craziest, silly stuff that we could try and do. And one of the fun stories was, and Jay was so fun too. Jay was crazy fun. The stuff that he pulled. That eventually he got fired. but he did some funny stuff. He did one thing one time that really almost got him fired, but the bosses laughed so hard that they couldn't fire him. Say, nah, we'll just don't do stuff like that. They had parking spots that were chained off, and they would have vice president, so-and-so's name, vice president, and their name painted on there, and that was their parking spot. Well, Jay was working in the lounge, and casino boss got fired. And Jay knew that because the casino ran the lounge. I mean, it was all together, the whole thing. Everything worked in conjunction with each other in the old days.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the show ended and the showroom doors opened, that lounge would start so that people could see it, go over there. And so Jay sees this guy gets fired, so he goes and takes the sign home, paints his name on, and gives himself a whole title. And he parked in there for like 2 weeks, and people were like, bosses, well, who's this Jay Ritz guy? What's this? Who's this boss? And then they found out it was him. But they laughed so hard, they moved him. But he was a very good spot operator, and he ran the board. So, and I just learned the board from just watching, because you were right there next to it. And Ron would explain things to me as he was doing them. Plus, he would ask me questions like, okay, Rick, tell me right now, what lights are on? And these are the olden days, you had dimmers, big dimmers, and we had, I think, 36, the board had 36 dimmers, and one extra one, which was always a conductor light, because you never wanted that to go out, so that was a separate thing. And I think Ron was partially involved in designing this light board. And it was one of the first boards that had a split crossfader and 10-scene board, electro controls, they were in Salt Lake City and Canada. So it was a nice board. And lighting in those days was totally different. Everything in those days was lit for human eyes, where you walked into the room and you were there to see something beautiful and this kind of stuff. So one of the big things that I learned from Ron, which he probably learned from Len Rader, who was one of the top light guys in this town, was blues first, blues last. I don't know if you ever heard that statement.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's all forgotten. Nobody does that stuff no more. But the reason you did that is because as the tungsten lights would start to come on, they're brown and orange. And so if you just even if you made the most beautiful scene that just looked perfect, if you started to fade it in, it looked terrible. Because the pinker lights are brownish and that kind of stuff. So one of the big things to run on a manual board was by these people, meaning like Ron and Lynn Rader and some of the early light guys, was your first thing coming on was your front blues. And then the scene would start to follow right behind it. And the blue light kept everything clean and pretty all the way up to full.
You didn't have that brownish. Yeah, exactly.
And it was a habit, and it was a lesson that you learned, and everything was done that way. So you can make real pretty looks, and I was pretty good at doing that, making cool stuff. And but Ron would he taught me, and like I said, he'd say, okay, what lights are on? I have to look down on that stage and tell him every bank of light that was on. And even though you couldn't see them, you know, you had to see what they did. So I learned a lot. You had to learn the numbers. And still in those days, we still had Brigham that we used for spotlights, because the Brigham colors were so perfectly beautiful. If you got an old Brigham book, I got one actually, and actually stamped stage sound equipment.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Grandpa's shop. Yeah.
yeah. But if you looked at Brigham colors, and that's what everybody would continue to use in their spotlights as long as they could, because they were just pure color. They were gelatin. And the color mix was, you know, number 3, I think, was the pink, and 17 was the lav. And
I don't remember those at all, you know, because when I would do some lighting, it was always, you know, Lee, or that was
Roscoe Lee.
Roscoe, or, you know, those
Yeah.
were those are the ones you used. And,
well,
right?
most
Or
of the
GAM. GAM was the other one.
yeah, I didn't use much of that. We used tons of Roscoeline all the time. So at the time, he made me learn all the Roscoeline colors and the numbers, and that's what we used in the general lights. But in the spotlights, everybody was used to the 3 and 17, and they also had a royal purple that was, I think it was, I can't remember the number, maybe 24 or something. It was just so gorgeous in a spotlight. And in those days, you lit like that. Women wore gowns, and you could light their gowns in an overlay and make some beautiful stuff.
Do a head to toe on them, and then put a nice little pin spot on their face or something. That always looked so good. It
Yeah,
was just,
and you don't see much of that now.
no, you don't see that ever. You know, it's just, you know, I haven't seen that, and I don't. It's got to be, you know, 30 plus years. I haven't seen that ever. You know.
Yeah, well, that all changed. Lighting changed with the first video cameras that people could buy. And once the people started videoing themselves on stage, and those colors were so dark that they looked awful.
Yeah, but the problem was the video cameras didn't pick up light real well at that time.
Right.
It wasn't the lighting; it was the camera's
But-
light sensitivities. you
Right,
know?
but what happened was if they went out there under work lights and videotaped themselves, they thought they looked great, and they did, because it was all white light.
Yeah, it was all.
So when the show went, they thought it was terrible. So that changed how people had to start lighting shows, because the acts wanted to see themselves in the show. So all the lighting colors had to lighten to the point that it was just TV lighting. So it might as well be in the parking lot.
Yeah. Now the cameras are so good, you know, but that
People have
whole
forgotten
thing
how
is
to do-
gone. Yeah. So
yep.
we've lost that lighting skill basically, but the camera's gotten good, so you can
Well,
actually.
they put 3 spotlights on somebody, and then that's it. They
Yeah.
just light everything around them, and the space and the air and all that stuff. But in the early days, the air was a cool thing because everybody smoked, so you didn't need, you know, foggers or any kind of stuff to put haze in the
I
air.
had forgotten about that. That's right. Everyone used to smoke out there, and it was just a natural. Yeah. It
Yeah,
was your natural.
You get a beam out of the
beamage.
light, you were thrilled.
Yeah.
Look at that, look at that.
Yeah.
But at the Sahara, we didn't have many good lights. You know, it was all old Steplins, Lecos. We did have a whole ton of Century Leco 750s, but the beam stuff came in much later. But it was about lighting the person. And it wasn't until I was the head light man for a while that the second time that I really figured out what you had to do for the act, and that was separating them from everything behind them. And you had to do that with side light. And for men, I found I had to use a light lavender, and I would use it from a couple different positions just to make it look different. But the whole point was they always wore black. And if you could light that black with like a bluish lavender, they looked fantastic.
Yeah.
And all the spot shots in those days started to become mostly waist shots. Because if you were in a full body, which you were sometimes, you know, it lit everything behind them too, the band and everything else. But if you had a powerful enough side lights, you could separate them from the band and make them stand out. And that was the key that really helped me, is I was able to figure that out. So the acts, and then I had such good timing. My mom played records all the time. So all these old acts, my mom played their records. So when they got there, I already knew what the song was going to be.
Oh, yeah.
And I had very, very good timing from playing drums. And
That's right. You did play drums. You were back in the high school band stuff and that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and all
that's
that.
right. That's right. Yeah, now I remember that. Yeah.
yeah, I got transferred from Rancho to Western, which was the top school in town at the time, to this group called Jubilation. And plus the concert band, marching band teacher was a guy named Jim Harris, and he was a Marine Corps band guy. So we had the biggest marching band. We had Jubilation, which was a big show group. Matter of fact, we were so good, we went and played conventions. We played at the Sahara a couple times. We played at, I think it was MGM at the time, but Bally's, now the Horseshoe. I remember playing up there in those old rooms. They would hire us, the school, to provide entertainment. So we'd go up there and do maybe a 30-minute show for the convention. So that was good fun when I was a kid. So, but the guy there that taught that, I had kind of, I'll say it like this, not to really use this word, but I kind of had perfect timing on drums. But that's not what you want to be as a show drummer. You have to be on top of the beat, which means you have to push it just a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. See, a perfect example would be the drummer for Elvis. If you ever listen to him play, he is so on top of the beat that he drives the band, drives the song, and everything. And I was too right on the beat to where it was not sluggish, but it really was.
Yeah, it pulls it back a little bit there.
Yeah.
It just,
So I learned that in running lights, that, wow, that lesson, which I just got in my last year in, high school, you got to push them. You got to push them. And so I figured out with lights, these dimmers, you got to push that handle way fast and get it there before the beat.
Yep.
So that the lights hit their full brilliance right on the beat. And I practiced. It was like anything else. People would leave, and I'd sit there and take a bunch of lights and practice until I could get those lights to, and it didn't take long because I already knew the concept, figured it out. And so I think that made it to where the acts were very, very comfortable when I ran the board, because there wasn't anything out of line. The lights moved with the music. That made them happy. The lighting went with the music. If the band played that's another thing I did right off the bat, is I hung a bunch of old Fresnels to light the band with. And so the minute the band was playing something, the singer stopped playing, boy, them lights came right on, and the singer spotlights would dim back, and the side lights would dim down or change to something prettier, and they could feel it, they could see it. And so they were very comfortable. And if you had the acts and the stars on your side and you never caused any problems, like you said, show up for work, do the work, go home, don't screw around, and you kept your job. That's how I stayed there, I think, 32, 33 years over there.
is that how long you were there? Because that's the thing the other night I was going, well, Rick's coming in. I've known him now, oh my heavens, for 50 years at least. And I'm like, I can remember how long you were at the Sahara.
Started
Head
in
Electric.
78, and when the hotel closed, I think it was 2011, 2012, right in there, it closed. SLS had owned it then. They were terrible people.
They were nightclub owners. They just
Well,
wanted to
they
have,
were, there's a different aspect of that too, which we probably shouldn't talk about. But anyway, they weren't that cool. But there was some good owners over there.
like a laundromat or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, they owned small hotels down in California.
Yeah.
But they hated unions, hated stuff like that. So, but yeah, But anyway, so yeah, I was there that whole time, but you ended up working extra a lot. And so everybody, and it was a small union, everybody knew you. The thing about the Sahara after the first couple years, where we had big stars, was that after that, the acts were coming in. Most cases, they were on their way up or the way back down.
Yeah.
So they didn't bring light man, they didn't bring sound guys, they didn't. So we got to do, and I got to do it all. I get
Yeah.
a list of acts that I did.
That's the nice part, is when it's you and you get to just do the interpretation and set
Yeah.
it up the way you want. So
And we couldn't change the rig. I stuffed that rig with everything I could find, including stealing Licos out of the casino attic.
yeah. Well, you didn't have any pipes flying in. There was no fly rail. There was nothing. So it was like hang it and there it is, and
Yeah, and if you want to move it, that's going to take 4 guys.
yeah,
You know,
and a
4.
ladder and.
Oh yeah, everything
No
was off
fun
the
there.
ladder.
All right, well, we're going to pause. That's the end of number 2 here, as far as episode number 2. And when we come back, we'll do some more adventures of Rick Keller and his show business live. Until then, Talbot, take it.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.
Yeah, I might have been drinking so much water.
Yeah, I'm good.
5 bottles of water already today.
It's good for you. Except, you know, the only problem with water, fish fucking it.
Oh, there you go. Thank you, W.C. Fields.
Oh shit, how do I do this again? God dang.
All right, type this up.
Yeah. Okay. Neighbor saw